listeners, welcome to another episode of
Leading from the Middle.
I Am Zann.
And I'm Jasbir.
Today, we're going to talk real talk on leading Gen Zs.
Leading Gen Zs. Very interesting group of people.
I know, have you had experiences working with Gen Zs, Jess?
Yeah, all the time. They're quite a big part of the workforce right now. A little bit different from us,
Yes.
from our seniors.
Like geriatric millennials.
Wait. Yeah, okay. I think Sandeep, you're a millennial, right?
Yeah.
But we are unfortunately geriatric.
So a little bit, Jess, let's define the Gen Zs. Who are these Gen Zs?
Yeah, I think they are those who are born between 97
Mm-hmm.
to 2012.
Yeah.
Is that correct? 97 to 2012?
Yeah.
Yeah. And now they're entering the workplace, right? So I think the statistics suggest that currently there's about 25% of that.
Yeah.
And by 2030, they'll be making up 30% of the workforce. So I think definitely it's time to be fluent with all things Gen Z. Not in terms of like skibbity and all these random words, Gen Alpha language, right? But in terms of how they like to be led.
Yes, and all of us managers leading from the middle, we will be leading Gen Zs. We've met a few of them, this season, this 6 months.
Yep.
How are they wired differently and why? Tell us a little bit more about their context. How did Gen Zs actually grow up?
Yeah, I think everybody's spoken quite a lot about how Gen Zs are different and how different they are, right? But I wonder whether there's enough dialogue about why. Can we really have empathy for why they are this way? I mean, let's think back to how we were parented. We were parented by parents who believed that they needed to have, or we needed an iron rice bowl
Yes.
because the world was tumultuous and financial well-being and safety was not a given. Our parents were World War II, post-World War II,
Yes.
the nation building, they were poor.
Yes,
Yeah, they were poor, right? And they had to get professional jobs, build an iron rice bowl to have that stability. And so they instilled those same values on us.
Whereas for Gen Z,
Who are their parents?
are Gen X.
Okay.
Those born in the 1965 to around 19...
Post-independence.
Yeah, post-independence already have a taste of maybe, how Singapore looks like as a first world.
Yeah.
So that parenting can be very different because my parents were very critical. If I don't get good grades, I kind of get smacked.
Yeah, our parents came from a place of scarcity. Whereas parents in maybe the Gen X who gave birth to Gen Zs, they might have come from a place of stability.
Yes.
And that influenced their words. Like I look at my sister, right? My sister is a parent to a Gen Z. She's a great parent. I would imagine her philosophy, and I don't know, I'm not in their house, right? But her philosophy being very encouraging. You can be anything you want to be. You can go and do that. Forget the glass ceiling. Forget the gender boundaries. You don't have to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. You can be a gardener or a creative whatever.
Yeah.
You do you, girl. I think that's the philosophy of the modern Gen X parent.
Yes, you're unstoppable.
Yeah,
right?
You're unstoppable. In fact, I have a book for my daughter called You Are Unstoppable. And so they're born with that kind of I can be anything, do anything confidence.
Yeah. So is there a upside or is there like a pro and con about this, you think?
I mean, I think they have that confidence. Gen Zs come in with a lot of confidence and it's definitely pro, right? They're not bound by the fears and anxieties of how we might be judged, like our generation were. They're not restrained in their thinking about how we have to have a certain type of job, how we need to do the 9 to 5.
Yeah.
They're not restrained in thinking that I need to do this to save. I need to do a traditional job to save for my retirement. In fact, Gen Zs now, because of their confidence and agency, many of them are already pursuing financial independence without the fire.
They're more woke in a way.
Yeah, without the need for a traditional 9 to 5 job. So yes, they have the 9 to 5 job, but they're doing other things. Like they're the most financially literate generation.
Yeah.
Right? Through YouTube, they have, universities still haven't caught on and given them financial literacy, and we didn't have that. But through YouTube, they have made themselves financially literate. So they've taken little money and they've already started the S&P 500. And they're already, so they probably started at 20, they're already, 27, 28 now.
So I like this, right? What does it mean for leaders who are leading Gen Zs? Because I can assume there are several downsides. We have had experiences, right? What are the downsides of them being wired slightly differently because of the context that they have?
What's the downside of Gen Z?
Is there a downside?
Is there a downside? I think the downside... downsides of them being... I don't think there's a downside of them being different. I think leaders just need to channel that creatively. I mean, for example... when we went to school, right, it was early days of MOE, and
Yes.
and it was very rote learning.
Yeah.
And the generations before us had rote learning. But when we were just finished primary school, secondary school, like Taman became the education minister, and he introduced creativity. There was group work introduced. There was project work, and so the Gen Zs are trained differently from us. They're trained to analyze. They're trained to creatively and collaboratively problem solve, whereas we were trained more to work, rote, and do, produce.
Yeah.
They were trained a bit more thinking, problem solving, creativity. So if we understand that their training is different from us as managers, the task we give them should be different too. Right? If we understand that they would prefer to be involved in discussions to contribute their creative thinking in the solutioning process, involve them rather than just delegate the task to them. So they bring different things. They're not just doers. They can do, but they want to be involved in the thinking.
So you mentioned when we talk about this, a little bit more asking, a little bit less telling.
Yeah, because these guys, again, the agency, I'm unstoppable. You are smart. Their parents told them that. MOE, the school upbringing also says that you're creative, come do creative problem solving. So don't just delegate to them and say, please solve, please do this, please crunch those numbers. Heck, the AI can do it, right? I want your thoughts. You have a unique perspective that we don't have.
Yeah.
They've been exposed to so much more information through YouTube, through the exchange programs overseas, through the different university curriculum that we never have even seen. Their familiarity with coding and tech, with AI, is much more than ours.
It's a bit more of a partnership.
Yeah, there is value to be gained from the Gen Z rather than, will they work for me? No, it's how can we work together? It's a different kind of thinking.
Yes. So I think for millennials, right, who are leaders and leading from the middle, we have to be careful about how we engage the Gen Zs.
Yeah, we need to create the environment for them to thrive, right? And what's not creating the environment for them to thrive is rigidity, judgment, right? Judging their differences as incompetence or an attitude problem. Give you one example, right? Judging the differences. One example where we judge their differences is you'll find that some Gen Zs, they are quite deliberate about leaving work on time.
Yeah.
Right? They want to leave at 5 or 6, whatever the schedule says. And they may not even respond to Teams messages or Slack after hours. And the judgment can be, oh, they're not working as hard. They're strawberry generation. They're born with a golden spoon. They don't need the money. They're not worried about these things. That's the judgment.
Yeah.
But let's have empathy. Why? Unfortunately, according to there was a Deloitte paper that was published in 2024 about multi-generational workforce. And in the Deloitte paper, it says 45% of Gen Zs have a second job.
Like a side hustle.
Wow. It could be things like Grab. It could be their own side business. It could be an online business, tuition, right? Giving tuition. But they have this side hustle. And so we want to know why.
Yeah.
And I spoke to a few of our Gen Z colleagues in the office who were willing to share their perspective. And they said, well, have you seen the HDB BTO prices today, right? Sandeep, can you just do a quick, what's the average BTO price today? I think it's at least 400, 500,000.
500.
But what's the average starting salary?
Yeah.
What's the
maybe about 4,000.
Okay, so let's work backwards, right? If the BTO and what's the cash outlay for your first purchase, right? If you need to buy your first BTO, let's say the cash outlay is at least 50 grand, right? How long does it take you to save that? If you have tuition loans,
tuition loans,
you have to pay your rent or your food, your expenses, and you're only earning $4,000. You need to dress the part in a consulting firm, right? I mean, how much do you have to save to pay your cash outlay for the BTO? And then the rest of it, CPF, you even have enough CPF. So then that's why they need to have the side hustle.
And I think it's a good thing because we want people who are self-starters, who are entrepreneurs, right? So these actually are good qualities that any organization would want to have.
So don't waste their time. Respect it, because they need to use their time and leave work on time to make money to take care of the other really fundamental needs that we bought houses when they were much cheaper, right?
Let me play devil's advocate here, because we do have a lot of leaders who we coach. And I recently was speaking to a leader at the MD level, and she was sharing with me her experience with a Gen Z.
Okay.
Basically, they had to run a huge hybrid workshop together to roll out a platform, right? And this Gen Z was an intern working with her. She had to be rather directive in the course of the project.
Okay.
And she's quite a directive lady, right? She's a very high level MD, right? At the end of it, the intern actually told HR gave HR feedback that I did not enjoy working with this person. And HR had to talk to my coachee, and my coachee was just really
flabbergasted. How dare this Gen Z give me feedback?
she has never gotten, I mean, she has been a leader for 25 years and she's an MD and she wanted the program to run smoothly. And in her point of view, from her perspective, there were things that the intern could have done better. And in a time crunch, the sense of urgency like this, she wanted to give that direct feedback to her, but it was too much for the Gen Z to take. And so if we play devil's advocate, she's thinking this Gen Z can't take feedback.
Yeah, I think it's both and, right? So if I understand you correctly, you are saying that the intern gave the HR feedback about the MD because the MD had given her feedback about how to do this job, right? Yeah, so it's a bit of both end, right? So the Gen Z's got to be humble enough to recognize that, okay, these people with a lot of experience have their preferred way of doing things and they may not want it your way. Maybe they are not open enough to see that your way could be better, or they have a lot of life experience that makes them want it a certain way. So there's a both ends. So the Gen Z's got to be humble enough to take it, right? Do some of the grunt work, receive the negative feedback, and see what can be learned from it. But on the other hand, okay, maybe we as the MD or the senior person has to be open to say, okay, is there value in what they were saying? You know, I think there was one incident. We had programs for in L&D. I was head of L&D at one point in time in another organization, and we needed to run certain programs, and there were some grunt programs that nobody liked to do, basic stuff that was very boring, not the fun, sexy, design your life kind of programs, right? And we put our names down because we had to do it. But the Gen Z didn't put the name down. And I asked her, hey, I don't see your name. She said, yeah, I don't really like that. It's not really giving me value. And I had to be quite firm with her and say, sorry, well, it doesn't give you value, but it's important for the organization and we can't always choose what we need to do. Take this as a chance to do the boring stuff, but because you're doing the boring stuff, you're honing your craft as a facilitator. There's some fundamental things like classroom management or people delivery that you can still learn even though it's boring. So the question is, how do we then frame the value for them, even if they're doing things they don't want to do? Because for them, they value growth.
Yeah.
They don't like low impact things like maybe that thing that we're talking about, but they value growth. So how can they learn from something they don't like to do?
So on one hand, I do admire their
confidence to say,
Yeah. Because last time, what were you and I do? We will kind of. There is a phrase called suck your thumb.
Yeah, suck thumb, yeah.
Yeah, we suck thumb. I don't think the generation Z it rocked with it. Any sound. Yeah. If they have something to say, I feel like they say in the most vocal way.
Yeah.
And then they see how it lands. And this is kind of their way of protecting maybe their boundary or fighting for how they want learning to look like and feel like them. Yeah. And I, on one hand, I really respect that, and I think that also inspires me.
Yeah.
Right. On the other hand, yes, it can be a little bit tricky for middle managers to manage if you're not used to that. Because maybe you're used to people saying yes and following the rules and pleasing you because you have authority. But Gen Zs, I don't think they're intimidated by authority.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, their perspective is, okay, if this person's going to flex authority on me, I don't actually need you. Why? Let's go back. You're not dependent on the authority because the Gen Z have a confidence that they can get a job elsewhere.
Yes.
The Gen Z have a confidence to start their own business.
Yes.
The Gen Z is probably already earning a side income elsewhere. So they're not worried about the authoritative leader who might take my rice bowl away. At the same time, you said the word purpose, right? I think Gen Z is much more inspired by purpose. They're much more fueled by purpose. In fact, there was an Academy research that we were reading the other day, right? About how Gen Zs are much more inclined to do better work or do more work when it's framed purposefully. That's how we communicate.
The why. Why are we doing this? And how will this give me a positive social impact? They're also very motivated by social impact.
One thing that's troubling me I'm not comprehending. Can you explain, what do you think explains, contrary, we vote for contrary, right? It published a research about how 72% of Gen Zs would prefer individual contributor roles as opposed to managerial roles. Yes. What do you think is going on there?
I think it's not just with Gen Z. I'm noticing this trend for maybe geriatric millennials or even millennials, right?
I agree.
We have seen, or they have seen, the Gen Zs also how their parents might have been let go from top, big, large organizations. So there's no such thing, or maybe there's less of being loyal to an organization and giving your 100 or 200% and hoping that the organization would take care of you, right? So I think that perception of loyalty is no longer there with the Gen Z.
But doesn't having a managerial position come with status, more money? Like, why don't they take it? Why does our KF research say that Gen Zs are shunning leadership and managerial positions?
I think increasingly the definition of success has changed, right? Success no longer just means title and salary. It also means self-actualization for them. And what we talk about, the sense of identity, right? It could be more free time, more autonomy with their friends, more social relationships, having that head space to pursue other side hustles that gives them more meaning socially. All that self-actualization of creating something from scratch, the entrepreneurism that we talk about, that comes into the whole circle of success, right?
So then, I mean, coming back to your coaching stint with this millennial or Gen X leader,
Yes.
what advice do you have for our listeners as leaders on the ground today, middle managers on the ground, as they lead Gen Zs?
I think we talk about a few, right? The first one is really asking questions instead of telling them. And when you ask questions, find out what their motivation is.
That you're inviting them into the solutioning. And you're, okay.
Like, why are you here in this organization? What do you hope to learn in the next 1 year? Even what do you hope to learn in this project?
Yep.
Right? Do you have a choice in joining this project?
Yeah.
Right? If you didn't have a choice, how can I make it memorable?
Yeah, actually, I remember this. We had a project kickoff and everyone got to share what they wanted to learn.
Yes.
And so then my job as the leader was to make sure that as I task them, I'm also giving them opportunities to do the things they want to learn. And then I'm giving them feedback on it so they feel like, okay, at least they're doing the grunt work, but they're getting something out of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what you mentioned, feedback and recognition. Most of us, we might only give feedback that's constructive, like, oh, you could have done that better. We need a whole episode to talk about feedback. But how about positive affirmations where we have done well to recognize them?
So asking rather than telling, feedback, recognition.
The purpose piece.
Phrasing work around purpose. Okay. What about the Gen Zs who feel like they're so powerful, they want to have some autonomy, freedom? How do they manage that?
I think we talked about freedom in a sandbox.
Right, same old.
Yeah. So you can't have all the freedom you want. We don't have all the freedom you want when you're in an organization. However, I can give you the why. You can decide on how you want to achieve.
So don't micromanage your Gen Z. Give them the broad purpose, the guardrails. Don't do this, don't do that. Don't spend so much, don't take too long time. Okay, but within that sandbox, all right, you can figure out whether we go blue or green or do we go,
And I think this thing about keeping them excited is quite important.
Yeah. In fact, I found that they lit up, right? I had this recent project with a couple of Gen Z interns and they were so excited when I said, hey, okay, this is what we need to do. I don't want to do it this way. Can you solve it using AI?
Yeah.
And the fact that they saw me playing with, the custom GPTs, which is fairly modern, they felt like relatability. Like, okay, this guy's not a dinosaur. He might look it, but maybe he's thinking like us in certain ways with the tech and stuff. So I think that keeps them excited too.
And I think keep them excited is also a mindset. When they bring us new ideas, we don't immediately say, no, that will not work.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
we
know.
can say, hey, this is what so this is what I like about it. How do you think it can work?
Yeah.
Our situation here.
Yeah.
Right. So I think these 5 tips are going to help people have a better relationship working with different kinds of Gen Zs. Yeah. And we want to caveat that there are many different kinds of Gen Zs.
Yes, yeah. It's not one size fits all.
Exactly. So you need to ask them questions, really find out what makes
You have to know their motivations, what matters to them, because we can't just treat them as road workers.
Yes. Maybe in our upcoming episode, we will invite like a Gen Z to come to us. Yep. Yeah.
So 3 different kinds.
Looking forward to that. So that's all for today, folks. If you have any questions, again, you're welcome to email us, comment, watch us on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Goodbye. Have a nice day ahead.
See you later.
Bye.